Imagine this. It's the dead of night, the kind of silence so heavy that even the ticking of a clock feels deafening. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks once, then goes quiet, as if it too senses something wrong in the air. You're lying in bed, half asleep, when suddenly the shrill, panicked tone of a phone call cuts through the stillness. It's a 911 call. The voice on the other end is trembling, terrified, and barely coherent. They keep repeating the same words that don't seem to make sense at first. "There's someone here. I saw them. Please, please, they're inside." The operator tries to calm them, asks the usual questions. "Where are you? Can you describe them?" But the voice keeps breaking, like they're speaking from the edge of pure fear. Then, abruptly, there's silence. No scream, no goodbye, just the faint sound of static before the line goes dead. For a moment, the operator is left hanging, staring at a screen that no longer blinks with activity. And here's the part that makes this different from any ordinary emergency. When police trace the call, when they rush to the address, there's nothing. The house is quiet, locked from the inside, with no signs of forced entry. The caller is nowhere to be found. It's as if they've vanished into thin air. This isn't an urban legend. This is a real 911 call, one that remains unsolved to this day. The kind of mystery that makes seasoned investigators lower their voices when they talk about it. And what makes it even more chilling is that nobody, not even the neighbors, saw anyone leave the house. The only trace left behind was that recording, a voice drenched in terror, cut off mid-sentence. When the police pushed open the front door, the house still carried the heaviness of a place disturbed only minutes earlier. A chair was overturned in the living room, the phone left dangling from its cord, swaying slightly as if someone had just dropped it. The kitchen light was on, but every other room sat in darkness, filled with shadows that seemed too thick, too deliberate. Upstairs, the bed looked slept in, the sheets crumpled, but there was no one there. And yet, officers reported an odd feeling. Not evidence, not something that can be put in a case file, but that primal gut sense that someone had been there moments before, watching, listening. The neighbors told police they'd heard faint noises, what sounded like footsteps on gravel, a door creaking, maybe even a muffled voice. But when they looked out their windows, they saw nothing. One woman swore she caught a glimpse of movement in the yard, a shadow slipping between trees, but she admitted it might have been her imagination. Still, everyone on that street agreed on one thing. The air that night felt wrong, heavy, charged. The investigation tried to follow logical paths. The caller's voice was analyzed. Was it male, female, young, old? Experts couldn't agree. Some said it was definitely a woman, hysterical with fear. Others claimed it could have been a man, the pitch distorted by panic and a bad phone connection. No background noises were clear enough to help, just faint static, maybe the hum of a refrigerator, maybe something else. Some even swore they heard breathing, not from the caller, but from a second presence on the line, silent but there. For weeks, police searched the area, combed through nearby woods, and interviewed anyone who might have known the caller. But here's the part that keeps this case alive in whispers and late-night forums. No missing person matched the voice. No one came forward to say, "That was my daughter, my brother, my friend." The house itself, according to records, had been vacant for nearly 6 months. No tenants, no owners living there, just an empty shell waiting to be sold. So who exactly made that call? There are theories, of course. The rational ones say it was a prank, a cruel joke that spiraled out of control. But those who've heard the tape argue otherwise. The fear in that voice wasn't staged. It wasn't someone laughing behind the lines. It was raw, desperate, the kind of fear that only comes when you believe, with every fiber of your being, that your life is seconds away from ending. Others suggest it was a squatter, someone hiding out in the abandoned house who met a tragic fate that night. But again, no body was ever found. Not in the house, not in the woods, not anywhere within miles. And then there are the darker theories, the ones whispered only in half-joking tones, because to say them aloud feels like tempting something you don't want to see. Some believe the caller wasn't alone in that house, not in the human sense at least. That what they saw, what terrified them into dialing those 3 desperate numbers, wasn't something the police could have arrested even if they'd arrived sooner. One officer, long since retired, gave an interview years later. He admitted something he'd never put in his report. When he first entered the house, when his flashlight swept across the walls, he thought he saw something in the reflection of a darkened window, a shape, a figure, standing just behind him. But when he spun around, the room was empty. He brushed it off at the time, told himself it was adrenaline, exhaustion, maybe even dust playing tricks. But to this day, he swears he felt breath on the back of his neck. The recording itself still circulates online in certain corners, though authorities refuse to release the full version. The snippets you can find are distorted, crackly, and brief, but enough to make your skin crawl. You can hear the panic, the sobbing, the sudden drop into silence. And every time, without fail, listeners claim to hear something new. A faint whisper layered beneath the caller's words, a low growl, or the chilling impression of laughter, faint and inhuman. Why has this call stuck with so many people? Maybe because it feels unfinished. Most 911 mysteries end with a discovery, a body, an arrest, an explanation. This one ends with a void, a cry for help swallowed by silence, a house where no one lived and no one should have been. A voice that came from nowhere and disappeared into nothing. And here's the part you can't shake once you hear it. If the house was empty, if no one was missing, then whose voice was it on the line? And what exactly were they so afraid of? Even now, years later, the case remains officially open but inactive. The file sits collecting dust, stamped with words no detective likes to see, unresolved. The house has since been sold, renovated, lived in by new families who claim nothing unusual ever happens there. Yet every so often, a visitor swears they hear something odd, the faint echo of a phone ringing in a room where no phone exists, or a whisper in the dark that sounds almost like a plea for help. So tonight, as you sit here listening, imagine this. Your phone rings in the dead of night. You answer, expecting a wrong number, maybe a prank, but instead, all you hear is a trembling voice saying, "They're here. Please, please help me." Would you stay on the line, or would you hang up, haunted forever by the sound of someone begging for their life, someone you could never find in a place that should have been empty? Because sometimes the scariest mysteries aren't the ones with monsters in the shadows. They're the ones that leave nothing behind at all, except a voice, a silence, and a question that will never be answered.